Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Make sure your phones are silenced. Wanted to welcome everybody to the 2017 Candidate Forum. As far as I'm concerned, I think this is the largest crowd that we have had, and I hope that our community also turns out also for Election Day. One of the things that we're going to do is we're televising this. It'll be on our website, so those people up north who still vote have a chance to do that. I'd like to thank all of you for attending. And, you know, these last few weeks have been very, very tough. Everything from Charlottesville to the Hurricane Harvey, then followed by Hurricane Irma, then by, and before that, the issue with Puerto Rico, and then last night, this horrific, horrible incident that you woke up to. And so there are a lot of people who are grieving. There are a lot of people who are in mourning. So if I may, with your cooperation, let's have a moment of silence for all those families and wish them well in getting through this very difficult time, please. Thank you. I'd, of course, like to thank all of you for your cooperation during Hurricane Irma. We made it through. Our HRT team was on the ball, and the damage here was not in terms of really homes or bodies. It was just a few trees. We decided to have a special session on generators. And the date on that is on Halloween. It's an informational event. There's not going to be a sales pitch of any type. So please come. That starts, and we'll give you the time on that. I think it's in the morning. Then we have great seminars this year. You're going to hear about that. We have the history of Venice by this local expert who does a tremendous job. I just talked to somebody in Ohio where he gave a speech about our wonderful city. You'll see that. Then the alligators, the return of the alligators. This isn't as crowded as the alligators group. I don't know what that's telling you. We're going to have one on medical marijuana. Yeah. Medical marijuana. We're having the regular session here and the private one by the gazebo at the end. We have in April an individual that was here before, 10 mistakes in estate planning. She is very good. She's been here before and was absolutely wonderful. Then the ever popular Bikorama 5, we're trying to catch up with Super Bowl. And then Shred Fest, we're going to have that in February. And the first ever Venetian field trip. You'll hear about that. We'll need permission letters for all of you. Now, right over here, please use the wall of something. It's been your board, an electronic board. There's some information that we have on there. Go to it. It's posted all the time. And then Bill Dwyer and his team are here for membership. We had a banner year this year. Now, I don't know how to approach this. I hope you're a member, but the HRT team, the two benches that we have along the path, you're going to see an American flag up in the front with a spotlight that we're donating. $30 a year? Come on. It means we continue the good things that we have. So let's talk about tonight. We will be videotaping and put it on our website. We thank those who sent in questions. I'm incorporating many of those questions in a broader topic. We will have Ms. Anderson and Mr. Newsom first, and then Mitzi and Emilio will be second. Now, you know, politics brings out the best and the worst in people. But I'm confident that tonight we will see only the best in both the candidates and our audience. In other words, it translates into agreement and disagreement with what the speaker is. So hold your applause and hold your boos for the Tampa versus Patriot game Thursday night. Just hold it there, not here. Please. We've never had an issue with that, and I'll get in my principal's voice if we do. So, finally, let's get out the vote, folks. I hope you saw my note in parcels. We have in this precinct 2,000 voters. That involves Willow Chase and a couple other places. But you make a mark on the outcome of this race and every other race. So without further ado, I'm going to walk over here, and Tom is going to bring up our two candidates, and if you will, because they're here and we're glad to see them at the Venetian, give them a round of applause. Good evening, and we're glad to see the two of you. You're going to hear me say 1-1. 1-1 means 1 minute each. Well, you may hear me say 2-2, 2 minutes each. And my good keeper, Tom, will let me know. You may hear me say 2-2-1-1. 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 1 rebuttal, 1 rebuttal. Now, I hope that was clear.
I'll write in the notes.
Use your mic, please. Deborah, please.
I'm taking notes.
Okay. This is going to be a straight 2-2, and Deborah, I will start with you on this question. If you were going to give Venice Council a grade now, what grade would you give it between A, B, C, D, or F?
Is the mic's on?
Yes.
Frankly, I would give it a between a C and a D, and I'll tell you why. I think most people, if you've been following the 3 years I've been in City Council, I'm for slow growth. I'm for controlling growth. Our neighborhoods are very important. The quality of our neighborhoods. We all worked very hard to move here. This is the last place we're going to live. I'm very much for preserving neighborhoods. I'm very much for fiscal responsibility. I voted against every budget because, frankly, I don't like how we spend money. We need to learn how to live within our means, and we need to prioritize. And to me, prioritizing is public safety first, infrastructure first, providing services to our residents. And that is not always the priority that is given that's not the priority given to spending on council the way it is right now. I have tried to bring residents into council more, so they have so it's easier for them to give input. I've tried to provide opportunity for them, including trying to get extra time for people, our residents that are older, that have special needs. I have tried to introduce, I'm an attorney, I rewrote the ethics statute. I stole Palm Beaches, I'll admit that. It's considered one of the best certainly the best in the state and one of the best in the countries. And I wasn't very successful with that. So, as far as I'm concerned, now that I'm thinking of it, I'm giving it a D. And, I have tried to, I'd love more people. We need more people on council that are slow growth, that are recognize the importance of our neighborhoods, the quality of life, prioritizing public safety, especially now with what happened with the
Time. Mr. Newsom, same question. If you're going to give Venice Council a grade now, what grade would you give it?
I'd give it a B. I think there's a lot of work that's. Is this working? Yes. I think there's a lot of work that still needs to be done. I think that the council has made over the last. We've got a group that's been together now for 7 years. They're finishing up the last of their terms, and I think they've made a lot of progress in getting the financial situation in the city corrected. They made a lot of progress in getting the police department pension program under control. It's just about to the point now that it's manageable. Still have a big issue with the fire pension for the city. They've started now to amortize and depreciate the assets of the city, and that had never been done before. So in previous councils, they've kicked the can down the road. And when there was a crisis, when they needed a building replaced or a roof replaced or a vehicle replaced, they really didn't have the money for it, so they had to go to reserves. I think the council has done a really good job in protecting the citizens against rising taxes. The property tax mill rate hasn't been raised for 8 years, so they've shown tremendous constraint in controlling the property tax for the citizens. I think they've started to do some very good future planning. What you're seeing happening right now with the roads, the repaving of the streets in Venice, that had needed to be done for years and years. And we were pouring bad money and bad money after good, trying to repair something that needed to be totally redone. So when you take a look at the broad spectrum of issues that the City Council has addressed over the last 7 years, I would give them a B.
Okay. Mr. Newsom, when you talk, hold the microphone closer to you, if you would. Okay. And we're going to start with you this time and rotate. This will be a 2-2-1-1. So 2-2-1 means you got 2 minutes, and then there'll be a rebuttal after that. But in terms of your background, your experience, your skills, how does that relate to being a council member in the city of Venice? Mr. Newsom, 2 minutes.
Well, I think the city of Venice is really, if you boil it down, is nothing more than a $125 million business. And in my career, I've managed multiple billion-dollar businesses. As most recently, I was managing a $2 billion business in Manhattan. And I was a senior vice president of operations for a private equity firm that did a turnaround on a failing company. And we put it back to health both financially and physically and sold it to Walgreens for a nice, it was an advantage both for the employees and for the investors that had invested in it. So when you take a look at managing something like the City of Venice, it needs to be managed on good business principles. You need to understand what your target is for the future, set goals for the future, and then plan all of your spending and plan all of your assets toward achieving those goals. I think that the City of Venice has a tremendous opportunity here in the coming years to even improve upon what is already a very positive quality of life. I've been a resident here in the greater area for 27 years. And the first time I came here was 1968. And when you see the constant improvement in quality of life that has taken place here in Venice, that didn't happen by accident. However, it can be better, it can be managed better if we apply good business principles to it. So I think City Council can benefit by me being on City Council with my strong background in business. I can apply business acronyms to the decisions that we make and better apply the standards that we would look for in performance from the employees and the assets of the city.
Ms. Anderson, same question in terms of council, in terms of your background, skills, knowledge, and talents. How do they relate to serving on council in Venice?
Right now, because I'm the incumbent, I've already been in council 3 years, I have that advantage of having worked there already for 3 years. But the thing that has been most helpful for me is I have an undergraduate degree from University of Chicago, which is a school that teaches you how to think and analyze, and a law degree from the University of Michigan. And I've really used my law degree. I look up, every development every development proposal that comes before us. I look up the law, I look up the statutes. I have met with the city attorney. He's given me cases to read. Because I'm an attorney, that has helped. You will hear people probably during this campaign say that they voted for growth because that was the law. They got the law from the developer's attorney. That's where they learned it. I'm able to go actually look it up myself and then statute in front of the developer's attorney, and they change their tune very quickly. But I think the other thing is I have been involved in grassroots politics here a long time, doing door-to-door, being a precinct captain, being a district manager for Venice. And the thing that I think that's really given me is that I've had contact with a wide variety of our residents. My husband and I, since 2008, have knocked on every door in Venice we could knock on. We've been working at it since then, and we got an award for knocking on the most doors. So I think my legal experience and my contact with a wide variety of people in Venice.
Mr. Newsom, you have 60 seconds to end it on this, and then Ms. Anderson will take 60 seconds only.
Well, of course, I have a degree in marketing from West Virginia, and I also have 4 years' experience on the Planning Commission. And in those 4 years on the Planning Commission, I was part of the group that rewrote the comprehensive plan. So of all of the sitting members of City Council, I would be the only person that has the background of sitting on the Planning Commission for 4 years and then going through the arduous detail, 85 meetings of rewriting the comprehensive plan, a new 10-year plan for the city of Venice. So I think that if you take a look at my experience just in the HOAs here in Waterford, one of your sister communities, and then my experience on the Planning Commission and my education, I think I can bring a lot to City Council.
Ms. Anderson, your final remarks on this question.
I'd like to respond to what Mr. Newsom just said. Yes, we have a new comp plan. The previous comp plan, which was only done in 2010 and took literally years with a lot of input, that developers didn't like it, and the developers' attorneys did not like it. Right now, we have a comp plan that developers love. So that is a pretty good indication of the difference between the two candidates.
Okay, 60 seconds on this. How do you decipher the pulse of the community, whether it's this community or any? But let's take this community. How do you decipher the pulse of this community? You're first this time.
I do it by talking to people and going door to door. I do door to door. I did door to door a lot for my campaign. I'm doing it for this campaign, and I'm trying to pick out certain neighborhoods, and try to hit each neighborhood for a week or something. And you get to talk to a lot of people. I talk to people at council meetings. I listen to input. I try to encourage input. But just going around and talking to people gives you a pretty good idea, because we are a varied community. I mean, there are real differences, and a lot of people aren't heard. And that's a shame.
Thank you. I'm going to split the difference. I told you 1 or 2, but I'm going to go with 90 seconds on this one. So, one of the major questions from our fine residents here is about growth. Did you, please? Did I?
You skipped me, yeah?
Skip you entirely.
Yeah.
You didn't have
That wasn't
the
on
1 minute
purpose,
either.
huh?
You didn't have the 1 minute.
I didn't.
Then go. What are you waiting for?
I personally like to see communities like yours put together a group of representatives that has been assigned by some of your community leaders, and sit down and talk with them about what is important in your community. So, I think there's been some very, very good work done in the city with having representation of groups like the Venetian Golf and River Club come and speak to issues that are important to the city. I think that probably was the biggest failure in the way the fire fee, as an example, was presented to the citizens. It was the horse before the cart. Had the people that were promoting that got citizens groups together and got their input, certainly it wouldn't have turned out like it did. It wouldn't have even been presented like it was.
I apologize for that. Growth was one of the biggest topics that I had from our community. You gave an opportunity to send in any questions. What is your position on growth? Do you support it? Do you discourage growth? It's been a big topic. So you got 90 seconds, and who goes first? Mr. Newsom, thank you for keeping.
Well, that's, of course, in the last 4 years, the Planning Commission is the first group that hears petitions from anybody that's going to build anything, whether it's a shopping center or whether it's a residence, a group of homes like a planned unit development like yours. And I would tell you that I think that the Planning Commission and the City Council are in a position to do exactly what the law says. And it goes back actually to 2002, 2007. The City of Venice entered into agreements with the Sarasota County for future land development. And because of those agreements, the plots of land that are part of the pre-annexation agreement between the county and the city is obligated from those agreements that were made to allow development if a developer comes forward. Now, I'm very proud of what the Planning Commission has done. We have taken the 5 units per acre, which was agreed upon, and reduced it to less than 3 in all of those developments that I have been a part of in the last 4 years.
A follow-up, 30 seconds, Mr. Newsom. With all the laws today, do you think that growth no, for you, Mr. Newsom, and then I'm going to go to her. The second part of that, Mr. Newsom, is with growth, in the laws, do you really think with all the virgin land we have, that we can do anything about growth? Possible?
Oh, absolutely we can.
What would that be?
Yeah, absolutely we can. Well, what we can do is we can enforce some very strict building standards to reduce the density on property. The new comprehensive plan that developers don't like requires all new development in the city of Venice have 50% of the land to be open space. And so that not only protects the new development, but it also protects established developments. Let's say, God forbid, the golf club here would fail financially. Well, you have a layer of protection that 50% of the land in the Venetian must be open space. So that tells you that from a future land use, you can't put a road down the middle of a fairway and build houses on it, because that wouldn't be allowed under the new comprehensive plan.
Ms. Anderson, we'll start first with the broader question, which deals with your position of growth in the Venice area with all this land that we have.
My family first moved here in 1986. That's when I bought my first house here. Bought the house we're living in now in 1993. My family, we came here because it was a small town. It reminded us of where we were from. And the ambiance and the character of Venice was very important to us. And I have been very vocal. I am probably the most vocal person on the city council right now for slow growth. I have voted, I've probably voted against every development except for perhaps one. As far as this this assertion that we have to, that you don't have any choice on development. Of course we have choice on development. And then what's the other about what?
The second question is, do you really think we can do something about growth, or is that sort of just a myth?
I think that we can do something about it, and I'll give you a great example. I mean, the woods recently. I mean, when you look at these developments, the test is, does it comply with the comprehensive plan? And in that case, with the old comprehensive plan, there were a number of issues with it. That was environmentally sensitive land. It was prone to flooding. There were wildlife corridors. I had gone in with the city attorney and talked before that, and we'd looked at the statute. He'd given me cases to read, and his quote to me was he didn't see a lawsuit there as far as any. I mean, developers love to threaten to sue the city. It's really interesting. So with a more robust comprehensive plan, yes. With a city council that has the courage to insist, all of these developments out here, we could have required all of these developers to donate 8% of their land, and we don't insist on that.
Fire department has been a topic of interest with the recent assessment fee going down. Now, there appears to be talking now about a stakeholders group. I don't think it's valuable to take the people's time to talk about what happened, but let's talk about moving forward. I think the primary question that we are getting is, what is your position in the moving forward with the broader issue of the fire department? Who goes first this time? Ms. Anderson, I think.
My position on the fire department has been very consistent. They are the most important. Now more than ever, they are the most important thing we fund. That is our hurricane defense. That is the biggest threat that we all face here. My consistent view has been that they and police, public safety is the highest priority. That is funded first. If you have to cut down and not fund some of the things that your friends or your groups or your special interests are coming in and trying to ask for money, which let me tell you, they do all of the time, gosh, I guess you have to learn how to say no. But and I have consistently always argued for more funding for our fire department. It's a matter of the equipment that they have, making sure they're safe. And our police department, frankly, I have long said, I think is undermanned. My family's been a victim of a crime. Our neighbors have been victims of crimes. I have seen, they're great, they're wonderful, but we need more police. And we need to make sure that we all recognize that the first thing we're going to fund with our taxes is fire and police.
Mr. Newsom, question is, moving forward with the entire issue of the fire department. 90 seconds, sir.
Oh my God, we agree on this. My wife and I attended the Citizens Police Academy for both Sarasota and Venice. And we learned a lot about first responders that we really didn't know, that you don't see on TV, that you don't read in the newspaper. And there is absolutely no question that a city, any city, that doesn't take care of the police, fire, EMS are foolish. That's your first line of defense for everything that happens. Hurricane, crime, heart attack. You know, I was a victim of a heart attack, and thank God we had first responders that were there to help take care of me. So I can only tell you that we agree on this. When you go through the funding for the city and you're looking to balance the budget, you don't balance it against first responders. Now, I believe that the stakeholders group is a good one to have for us, because I think what it will do, it'll help us to identify what the real costs are to run the fire and the police departments, but especially fire. You know, right now we say that we need $9 million to fund the fire department on an annual basis. I don't know if that's right or wrong. But I think a stakeholders group with some really sharp people on there will help us get to the bottom of it, and we'll know what it really takes to fund it properly.
We're going to take 60 seconds on this next question. When you mention the word affordable housing, workforce housing, whatever word you want to give it, there seems to be pushback from our community. Why do you think there's this pushback, and how would you deal with it? Who's up this time?
Well, I think that there's many of us came from big cities, and we've seen the abuse that comes from some of the public housing and the low-income housing that's built. Now, let me give you a first-hand example here in Venice. My wife and I live in Waterford, and there are 3 large apartment complexes right on Capri Isle. This past week, she and I attended a meeting of the Young Professionals, which is part of the Chamber of Commerce. Many of them live in those apartments because they can't afford yet to buy a house. They haven't gotten to the point in their life that they can buy their own property. So I think that the stigma that you see in big cities is often psychologically transferred to what is going to happen here in Venice. My wife and I have owned our home in Waterford now for 15 years. Those apartment complexes were there when we bought our house, and we knew it. They have not negatively impacted our quality of life, and they haven't negatively impacted our property value. And what they have done is they have helped us to stop the brain drain from Venice. There's a lot of really sharp young people that are raising families, and they're trying to save the down payment for a house, and they're living in those apartment complexes.
Ms. Anderson, I gave him 90 seconds on that. I should have told you beforehand. So 90 seconds you have. The pushback from our community or other people about workforce affordable housing. Why?
I think that the reason for pushback is that people, and us, we live on the island. I mean, we feel the same way. People are afraid that bringing in affordable housing to their neighborhood will change the ambiance of the neighborhood, the atmosphere of the neighborhood, and frankly, I have always spoken out about the importance of maintaining our neighborhoods. We worked our lives to be able to move here. And frankly, as far as affordable housing, I mentioned that, I live on the island and we have affordable housing near us. And I mentioned that, our neighbors who are in their 90s, that my husband and I are very close to, they were a victim of a crime. Their house was broken into when they were out on a walk. We know our neighborhood, okay? We know probably who did it. We can't do anything about it, but that's what came from, low-income affordable housing in my neighborhood. My husband and I were just a victim of a crime in our house, and it's not our neighbors that are doing it. It's not the people in Venice that are doing it. I'm retired, and frankly, this is not, I went to college in a ghetto.
Ms. Anderson.
I didn't want to retire in one.
Thank you. The 30 seconds on this, and it deals with one of the questions. There's a discussion going on with the impact fee. And the question is, do you agree or disagree? We're going to go with 30 seconds. The exemption for profit businesses for the affordable housing. There's on the table that right now. Who's first?
Yeah, what was the question about the
affordable housing? That one of the developers said, I'll play the game, but you got to give me an exemption for a profitable business, an impact exemption.
Okay, I'm going to say one thing. You already are subsidizing affordable housing because City Council recently approved $550,000 out of a capital fund. That's a fund that the money could have been used for the police. And that was just allocated to government housing that is supposed to be built on Tamiami Trail, Business 41, and Venice Avenue. Okay, so you've already paid $550,000 of your taxpayers' money on that. I guess I'm not for subsidizing affordable housing.
Thank you, Mr. Newsom. Same question. The impact fees, some of the builders want an exemption.
Yeah, I know that there's some builders that have at least said in the newspaper that they want some exemptions for impact fees, and I'm absolutely opposed to that. And the reason is that the City of Venice is not in a position today to be able to contribute to any issue that would cause the city to reduce their impact fees. The city today has a infrastructure problem. And we've kicked the can down the road too many years. And so we need every dollar that we can possibly get in impact fees. I think we've already identified in the budget process that we now as a city can start to charge extraordinary impact fees on new construction that would help to fund police and fire specifically. We can target it to police and fire. So I would absolutely oppose giving any kind of issue or any kind of money back to a builder from our impact fees.
I got 60 seconds on this last one. I was going to a couple questions, but we got to watch our time. We got two other people. This sort of closing argument. I'm ready to go into the ballot box or booth. I'm ready to vote. Why should I vote for who starts this time? Deborah, do you? Mr. Newsom? Why should I vote for Charles Newsom?
Well, I have a long history of operating successful businesses. The reason my wife and I could retire here and own a home here, and we earned everything that we've got, is that we work together as a team, number one. But number two, I have the background, experience, education, and to operate successful businesses. And that's what the City of Venice is. And as I see it, the City of Venice is in a turnaround situation, and that was my expertise in business. Took failing businesses, found out where the waste was, and where to apply the capital to bring it back to health.
15 seconds.
So I promise you a very professional approach, listen to everybody's input, and then do the right things for the citizens of Venice.
Ms. Anderson, closing arguments.
When I ran 3 years ago, I told people that I was going to speak up for them, and I was not going to be swayed by special interests, donations, money, et cetera, et cetera. And in the 3 years I've been on council, that is what I have done. I have spoken up to try to be able to make it easier for you to provide input into our city government. I have spoken up against runaway development, too much traffic, too much crowding. I have spoken up for fiscal responsibility. I'm happy to pay taxes, but I don't want to see my taxes wasted. I want to see them spent on what is really important to most of the residents here. I don't like, and I have, I have been able to, speak out in opposition to, a lot of what is the traditional wisdom now, which is spending money on our projects and more development.
Both of them I give credit for. To throw your hat in a ring in politics today is tough, and they are both campaigning, and I think you deserve a round of applause to show that. Well, we have two people here that are our next group, and we had a very lively first round, and we have for seat number 1, Mitzi Fiedler, and for seat number 2, Emilio Carlosimo. Give him a round of applause. as we did with the other fine candidates, I'm going to be giving the questions, and I'm going to keep better track, or Tom's going to keep better track of who goes first. And you'll hear me say you got 90 seconds, or you got 1 minute, or you got 2 minutes, or you got a 2-2-1-1, which means 2 minutes each and 1 to respond. So you got to pay attention to all of this. Could you say, so we can do a mic check, good morning or good afternoon, Ms. Seeley?
Good afternoon.
No, on your mic, on your mic.
Your big mic.
The big mic.
Big mic.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, Amelia.
Good evening.
Okay, here we go. First question, and we'll start with you, Ms. Fiedler. 2 minutes. If you're going to give the present city council a grade, what grade would you give it?
I think the present city council is doing a very good job. I think that they have taken on the issue of budget and they're looking at it in a proactive way. For the first time, they are doing an asset and a depreciation schedule. The asset depreciation schedule will set the maintenance schedule for the things that we own. That will direct the budget. For the first time, we will be putting money into maintaining the things we own rather than in crisis management, getting caught up and finding that we have to repair things that should have lasted many more years. In putting the budget into order in this way, it will extend the life of many of our assets so that they can continue on in the future. In addition, they're looking to get new funding from different sources of the developers so that the developer finally pays his fair share so that it's not a burden on the taxpayers. The council is doing an excellent job in finally not using reserves to balance the budget. Unfortunately, this year they did happen to dip into the reserves, but they're looking to balance that out with money that comes back. And again, this is one of the first times that that has been done. So the City Council right now is being very proactive, using our money wisely for the future, and I give them a good grade for that.
Okay, Amelia, same question.
I'll give the city council an A. Some of the reasons would be what my opponent just reiterated. But I think we need to look beyond that. This council, and I was a part of it before, had issues that had carried forward from past. In addition to that, we just came out of the recession. And the city they maintained full services without raising taxes. They did it by going from 320 employees down to 265 through attrition. They didn't lay anybody off. So I think they are catching up with things that were neglected in the past. So I give them an A. Two of the biggest things is pensions for the police and fire. I was part of that when we changed that. Overall, that is going to save the city for the life or next 20 or 30 years about $25 to $30 million. That in itself is a big number. And in about the same period of time, 30 years, the city will be out of the pension business because of the changes this council made. The budget, I have to differ with my opponent on that. We have an email from the mayor. The city council has never used reserves to balance the budget. And it's against the state law, and it's against our city charter to do that. And I never say anything that I can't document. So if anybody wants to see, and today I'm going to say names, and some of them are going to be your neighbors, so you can double check everything I say. I never say anything that I can't document, and I have all the documentation right here. Thank you.
How do you make sure that when you get on council, you're not going to be one of those micromanagers who's going to deal with every pothole, if there are any here, every little rabbit that's going through there, and let the city manager do his or her job, whoever it is at the time. Emilio, I think you start at this time. 60 seconds.
Well, I have the, if you read the city charter, the charter defines exactly what our responsibilities are. And that's my Bible. I'm not a micromanager. I think my history on the board shows that I'm not a micromanager. But let me say one thing else. We have a terrific city manager who just got a 10% raise, and it was unanimous, and he deserved it. So we have the means, we have the staff, where a council member does not have to micromanage, and it's against the city charter.
In the past, in solving some of the budgets, I've noticed as I sit and listen to the budget that the City Council has some opportunity of changing things that perhaps the staff has recommended for them to do. To me, I think that we have hired a staff and we need to use their expertise in when we visit and what we're going to do in the future on City Council. I am not a micromanager. I believe in employing people who can get the job done. Ed LaValle is excellent at the job he does. He has created a budget. He has a long-term vision for it, 5, 10, 15 years out. He's got an asset depreciation. He has arranged for all of his departments to do the same. When he brings a budget forth, after we get all of our depreciation schedules done, it will be a budget that we can be proud of. It doesn't need to be micromanaged.
Now let's talk about your background, your qualifications, your skills, your knowledge, and how that fits in regarding this position of serving as a council member. And we'll start with Mitzi. You have 90 seconds on this. Let's go with 90. Your background.
I have a PhD and 2 master's degrees in administration. I have led numerous different organizations. The YWCA, I was the board president. I was the board president of the Wisconsin Council of Gifted and Talented. I have I've been the principal of an elementary, middle, and high school. I have managed budgets. I am a recent graduate of the 2017 Gulf Coast Leadership Clinic here in Venice, Florida. I have the skills and the leadership of 40 years of experience getting the job done and the credentials to do it.
After this forum, my wife and I will be distributing this brochure. It gives you my full background. I'm a retired firefighter from Detroit and the county of Sarasota. I serve on several boards. The most important thing in being on a city council in a small town like ours is to have community affiliation and knowledge. We don't want to get our information from all our information from a cocktail party. We want to get it from individuals. If you look at my brochure, you will see that I belong to several organizations. You will also see that my brochure is broken down into neighborhoods, because I took the time to meet with the leaders in those neighborhoods, and that includes your External Affairs Committee. When they told me what their issues were, I knew that I could get behind them, and I put my promises and my goals in writing so that the next time I run, you have a report card. So my background is dealing with people. I'm a fireman. I'm used to handling challenges. My history on city council, I can go into that, but the thing I'm proudest of, when I got elected, I promised to do away with free health care for the city council, and I had to do it through means of a...
Ms. Fiedler, we'd like to know, we'll give you, maybe you forgot something, 45 seconds on that topic of your qualifications, background, anything. 45 seconds.
45 seconds.
Did you forget to say anything?
I did.
I am on the Mayor's Advisory Board for the Environment. Tom Jones is our chair. I'm on the Mayor's Advisory Board for Code Enforcement. I am a member of the Women League of Voters here, the AAU, the American Association of University Women, and on many different organizations, Rotary since 2000, Chamber of Commerce. I'm very well connected within the city of Venice, and I do consider those also expertise.
Okay, Mario, you have also the same amount of time. Something you forgot, or wanted to mention?
To finish that sentence, I had a petition-driven citizen drive to put it on the ballot. But let me go back and say, Brenda and I have lived in Venice for 29 years. My history with the Venetian Golf and River Club goes back to 2009, when the Venetians, the residents here, were having trouble with the aggregate company. I worked with Shannon Staub and other council members to resolve that issue. When the Venetians wanted Laurel Road paved, the county paved it, but the city, I was active in making sure that that was done. I was active along with other council members to make sure that the Mayaca River Park was opened. I was at the ribbon cutting. And let's talk a little bit about the Jacaranda extension. I could talk more about that. The Jacaranda extension, I fought where they wanted to put it and fought to have it out here. And the closing of Fire Station 3 out here, when we were in a budget crisis, they almost closed it. I called John Mokel.
Thank you. Thank you. We were the, shall we say, the stepchild who came into the family when you talked about North Venice. You got the island, you got retirement communities how do you decipher the pulse of the community to ensure that you're listening to them and they get their fair share, if you want to use that word? We're going to start, Tom, with Emilio. And let's take about 90 seconds on this.
Okay, and thank you for that question. I think history shows that I have always been sensitive to every area of the city, including this area, because I can name the people I've worked with and the issues that were important to your community that I supported and worked on. But one thing I would never do, I would never try to divide our city and say, vote for me because I live on the island. I would never do that. That's a divisive tactic that is not good for our city as a whole. We don't want to go back to ward-type politics. But when I meet with your External Affairs Committee, I listen to what they said, and I put it in writing. And that goes for Central Pine Brook South. It goes for the Sawgrass and Waterford communities. They are included in here too. And this is my report card that you can use against when I run again.
I agree. I agree. I think it's important to listen to the citizens. After all, you elect us and we are supposed to represent you, not represent a particular issue or a developer or any a political campaign. What we need to do is listen to the people, and in doing so, I talked to Dick Longo, who is the HOA president at Sawgrass. He has a community of other HOA presidents, Holly Lard, and so in talking to the different HOAs, I get a feeling of their pulse. I go to many of the meetings. I listen to what they have to say. I'm at Bay Indies. I'm at downtown. I'm a downtowner. I put on a green shirt and walk around for 2 hours every Monday, talking to the community, the people who run the businesses. And I think it's important to listen, to be available, to be out there, to work on as many committees as possible, and to hear what the people have to say. We represent you. We are your voice on City Council, and it's necessary to hear you.
Okay. One of the major questions that we had dealt with growth. Okay. So, what's your position on growth? Supporting it, discouraging growth? It's a number one concern. So, Mitzi, can you tell us in about 90 seconds?
I am not opposed for growth. Growth is healthy for a city. You talk to any realtor, and the realtors will tell you 20% of your city is always for sale somehow or other, and that means it's a healthy city. So we will experience growth in our city. Growth is good for the city, but growth needs to be managed. You have to realize, and you do know, we live in paradise. We do not have to give anything away. We have a developer that has come in and he says he cannot make a deal. He's got a poor business plan in my mind when he says that he wants to develop here, but gosh, he can't do it unless you, us, the taxpayers, give him between $7 and $11 million in order to make, so that he can make a profit. I do not consider that effective or balanced growth. And I have to say no to that developer. If he has a poor business plan, it's not my crisis. It's not the taxpayer's crisis. So when we have developers come in, and we do, they have to pay their fair share. They have to make it a neutral so that it doesn't impact negatively on your quality of life. You don't want a skyscraper next to your house? We should have rules that mandate that. When development comes in, and it will, and it should, it needs to be managed wisely so it has no negative impact on the quality of your life.
Mario?
Roger, can I stand? Is it okay if I stand when I talk? Do you mind?
I'd rather you just sit there. It's easier for our camera.
Okay.
We're paying big money for bringing NBC here, and I don't want to mess it up.
Okay, but wait a minute, I better sit up straighter then. Okay, let's talk about growth for a second here. No one wants rampant growth. I mean, no one wants that. But how good a job is the city doing in controlling growth? Let's talk about I could go on and talk about the comp plan, but I'm going to give you a statistic that I can back up with the paperwork right here. The last 3 projects that were completed in Venice, not completed, that were approved in Venice, the density that was allowed and the density that they built to was 50% less. So when they tell you that we have space for 5,000 homes, that's a number that is the maximum number. The last 3 were down to 50% or below on density. How do we control growth? We control growth through several tools that we have. The first line of defense is our planning commission, our comp plan, our LDRs, land development regulations, and our zoning. So when developers come in, and let's talk about developers paying their own way.
15 seconds.
We have a lawsuit going on right now because the city is demanding that this developer pays his, I forget what it's called, some special impact fees. And we're suing him to make sure he pays it. So it isn't a question of the city granting anything. And workforce housing is a different subject altogether.
I'm just going to ask the 30-second question on this. We'll start. We're going to go back to Mitzi. Do you really think it's realistic to say that a city council can stop growth? I mean, you look at other cities and they talk about it, but realistically, what's your answer?
A city council doesn't stop. A city council doesn't stop growth, it manages growth for the benefit of the people that it represents. You take Salary Fields up there in Sarasota. City council stopped that project because it didn't make sense for the people who live there, even though it was approved in many different ways. So yes, city council has the ability to manage growth, not stop it, but to manage it so that it has no negative impact on the citizens that it represents.
Emilio, same question. Can you really, as a council, stop growth?
You know, managing growth is a kind of a misleading statement. When a developer has rights that go with the property, by law, he's entitled to those rights. When he comes before council, that is after he's gone through the process, and he's vetted by the Planning Commission. Council can say no to him if he's asking for a special exception that is not his by right of the property. And to back that up, everybody, if you're not familiar with the Burt Harris law, Google it. Bert, B-E-R-T, Harris, was that it?
5 seconds.
Okay, H-A-R-R-I-S, Bert Harris. If you don't give the man his rights, you're liable financially.
Okay. The other topic that we had is about the fire department. A lot of people wrote in about the fire department. Now, I certainly realize, as you do, that the recent assessment fee didn't pass. Now there appears to be a stakeholder, and I really don't think it's valuable to go back as to what happened. Let's talk about moving forward. What's your position in moving forward? I'm going to give you 90 seconds again on this. Is 90 seconds for both of you sufficient? Yes? Sure. Okay, 90 seconds. Amelia, you're first.
When the fire fee assessment came out, I live in a condominium. A condominium owner came to me with his property taxes and explained to him the flaws in the system, in the equation that affected condominium owners to a greater degree than any other property owner. I took it along with the person who came with me to City Hall. City Hall was not aware of that flaw in the system, in the equation. And so I'm not saying I rung the bell. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that I'm not afraid to take a position, and we all know that that was an inequitable strategy to raise money for the fire department. So I'm against it. We've used the stakeholder principle in the past. I think it'll work for us this time. I don't know anybody that doesn't support our fire department. I don't know anybody, well, I shouldn't say that. The majority of the people I know want a full-service city, and they want to support our public safety officers.
Okay.
Going forward, I think that it does, and again, City Council, I think, has done a wonderful job in putting it to the people and asking the people to join together as a group to look at this issue. And it has many different layers into it. For them to come up with an answer or a suggestion and have it appear before City Council, I commend the City Council for doing this. And this is what. The people are the ones who are going to have to own the system. And it's up to the people to decide if this is a system that they can afford and that they want to pay for, because your taxes are going to have to go up to pay it. The fire department is $9 million, $3 million of it is a pension, $6 million is operation. That is a big number. And that number is going to have to be subsidized somehow, whether it's by a fire fee or by an increase in your tax. The citizens have to decide whether it's a referendum or whether it's a group of people that come together, and they have to sit down and decide, is this a system that the taxpayers are willing to pay for? After all, it's your system. So I think it's a good idea that we look at it, we look at all of its ramifications, what are the benefits if we combine with Sarasota. Is it better for us? Is it worse for us? These are questions that the citizens need to ask, because it's you that it's the impact to.
Thank you. Next question, again, was raised by many of the people here, and it deals with affordable housing, workforce housing. Why do you think there's been such a pushback from primarily this community? And, what do you think they'll support? We'll start with Mitzi.
Well, first of all, we have to decide what... First of all, we have to decide what the definition is. Do we have workforce housing? Do we have affordable housing? Do we have low-income housing? All of those have different connotations. So I think the definition is kind of confused. Once we decide what the definition is, then the citizens as a whole can come either behind it or not. You have to look at our community. The average age in our community is 86 years old, and no, what is it? 68 years old. Sorry, backwards. Rerun. I'm sorry. 68 years old. And as 68 years old, for our average citizen, you have to decide what exactly are we talking about with affordable housing. You see that there are apartments and affordable housing units going around us in Sarasota. We have 272 that are going to be built right on the corner here. So we have opportunities for housing that is available to us within 20 miles in any direction. We have to decide, is this something that we need to subsidize, which is what they're asking us to do in the John Nolan Gardens. Do we want to subsidize affordable housing for $7 to $11 million? Or do we have that need? I think first, if we come to the definition, we understand what we're talking about, then we can come to a conclusion as to whether or not it's something that we need, and we can decide whether it's something that we want to increase our taxes to support.
Next.
There is no doubt that we need affordable workforce housing in the area. The Chamber of Commerce has gone out in favor of this, and one of the reasons they did that, because of a presentation by Dr. Pinto, who's the author of this plan. So the need is absolutely there, and I can explain why there's the need in case you don't understand, don't know why, but I only have 90 seconds here. So let's talk about subsidizing. Nowhere in the discussion for Dr. Pinto's plan was there any talk about subsidizing anything. He said that he would need some relief on some of the permitting on those things. Whether or not he gets that is still a subject for the future. But let's look at PGT and Tervis tumblers in our community. Each one of them, when they came to our community, the city gave them a 10-year abatement on part of their property taxes. And the reason for that is because that is an investment to bring tax dollars, work jobs, and for our community. Their abatements are about to end. So it's not a subsidy if you invest in something because you see a return. The property that Mr. Pinto is promoting will pay $720,000 a year in property taxes. So if he gets relief from the county,
I have to be equal. Sorry. I just want to make sure that I heard the right thing. Just correct me. One of the things that Mr. Pinto said was, I think, forgive me on the impact fees, okay? Do you agree with that or disagree with that? And we'll start with you with just 30 seconds on this one.
I do not necessarily agree with it, but I want to explore it because everything in business and government is a negotiation. There are other agencies out there that might partner with us and have an interest in partnering with the city to accomplish affordable housing for working people, firemen, police, nurses, et cetera, et cetera. So I am definitely in favor of pursuing it. Would I vote to do it? It depends on a few items, but I'm not saying here I'm against it.
Mitzi, same thing.
I can say I'm against it. I don't think that any developer needs to be subsidized by the taxpayers. There are affordable housing projects that can go on without having taxpayers to pick up the leftovers or what can't be paid. The mayor's exploring one right now on Grove Street, which is a low-income tax relief program for affordable housing. It does not require us giving $7 to $11 million of tax breaks to the developer. So there are affordable housing. Okay, there are affordable housing opportunities that are available to us. We certainly do not need to subsidize them with our tax-paying dollars.
I'm going to pepper you with these real fast. Here we go. Pepper means about like 30, 45 seconds. We start with Mitzi, 45 seconds. We're concerned about the noise issue on the north or east, some border, wherever it is. Okay? Where are you on that?
I'm agreeing with you. I've been very effective in working with different cities in the past, getting noise ordinances enacted and monitored and enforced, and not only noise but dust and light, any kind of thing that affects the quality of your life.
End of that pepper, you got it, Amelia.
My position is very clear. It's on the paper. I also support it. But, when you look at my record, this is a job interview. You look at my record, I've had a history of doing this in the past for the same community. I know how it's done, and I can get it done.
Next question, Amelia, start off with on this. Another Pepper question. Parks. We don't really have parks in this area. Okay? Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about parks. The city spent $1 million in buying that property by the bridge near the Chamber of Commerce office. I voted against it, and it's on the record why. In my statement on why I voted against it, I said that we should take that money and either spend all of it on parks for the Northeast Venice, where there's a shortage of parks, and or take half of that money and spend it for parks and half towards the fire and police, the fire pension system. I'm on the record for that, so you know my position on parks for this area.
Mitzi, your position, parks in this area.
The city of Venice currently owns 2 pieces of property over here in Northeast Venice. Both are eligible to become a park. We don't have to pay any more money in it. Part of it is the Ajax property. The mayor is interested in creating some sort of buffer, which would be a park-like facility. We don't need to invest any more money. We don't need to buy any more property. We own property. We just need to develop it.
Now we're going to come to sort of the final question. And we appreciate, first, both of you adhering to our time. I know we try to condense things in respect to your time and the fine people here and the fine people watching. Tell the audience, when they get into the booth, why they should vote for you. You got 2 minutes.
Woo-hoo. Who's starting?
Tom, who starts? Mitzi, 2 minutes.
Why you should vote for me?
Yeah, you're telling them a closing argument. Why should you vote for you?
I've had over 40 years of experience working in community service. I have a proven record of getting the job done. I have the credentials to do it. Again, a PhD and 2 master's degrees. I have been sought out by a number of different people and different organizations to work with communities to solve problems and to get them done. I can do it. I have done it in the past, and I look forward to doing it now. I believe that there are voices that have not been heard on City Council. I have sat with you many times in City Council, and I walk out, shaking my head. Is anybody listening? So I do believe that there needs to be new voices on City Council. I believe there needs to be voices that are willing to listen to the people. I believe there needs to be voices that will second Rich Cotero's when he comes up and he says we need a noise ordinance, and no one seconds or furthers that motion. I believe that the people need somebody that's willing to stand up and say, yes, I second that vote. You need to listen to the people, and you need to move forward. I don't believe that in increasing taxes.
15 seconds.
I do believe that we can pay our bills, we can progress in this city, and we can make it the city that you retired to that will improve your quality of life.
Thank you very much. Amelia, 2 for why should I vote for you?
Thank you. I hope that you will look at me as an applicant for a job, like you would look at an investment. You look at the history of the company, what they've done in the past, how they've acted, and their reputation. That's not necessarily a guarantee of the future, as you know when you read a prospectus. But my history shows that what I put in writing, I accomplish. In addition to that, when I take a position. I don't change my mind 3 times on my website. You can count on what I say, and I say what I do and do what I say. But in addition to that, my work has been in the city of Venice. I'm not going to enumerate the organizations I belong to, but if you want to know what's going on in Venice with the homeless, you're on the board of the Salvation Army. If you want to know what's going on with beautification, you're on the board of VAVI. And let's talk about Main Street just for a minute, because business is an important part of our community. I was chairman of the membership committee for Main Street, and our committee increased memberships by 24%, a record for that organization in 1 year. So it's a balance, and I think I bring that balance to the table.
Would you give the courtesy of just give me about 90 seconds? First, you were great as an audience. I didn't expect anything different. Give our two candidates, if you could wait for a moment, please wait. I wanted to thank if you could wait for just a moment, ladies, just a moment. I wanted to thank our very fine videographer, which will give you another reason that the membership table will be open. There's a cost, but thank you, gentlemen. So, if you're watching from home or another place, or you're watching up north, we'll look forward to see you, but remember, we have first dib on restaurant reservation. But in terms of this group, the most important date is November the 7th. That's the last time you can vote. It's so easy in America today. And those who have served have given us the right to vote. We must, as America, vote. We had a 90% voting turnout with the presidential. I'd like to see 100. And that means you have three ways. You can walk in to the Board of Election. Number two, you can vote by mail, it's on there, or you can show up right here on November the 7th. I want to thank everybody. Enjoy. Thank you very, very much, and have a great day.